friends. Welcome to Sky House Herbs podcast. I'm Ashley Ellenboss, a clinical herbalist, and in this space, I share my knowledge and experience with plant medicine to help you on your own journey of healing and transformation. Join me in exploring the ancient wisdom of plant spirit medicine and how it can be used to heal the body, mind, and spirit. We'll talk to experts in the field and share stories from people who've been transformed by powerful plant allies. New episodes are released each Monday, so please subscribe. And now, let's explore this mystical world of plant medicine together. Hey, Herbies, welcome in. In advance of today's talk, I want to let you know that today is the launch of our 2025 annual Kickstarter campaign. In our annual Kickstarter, we offer discounted tuition prices for all of our courses, including my Year 1 Herbal Apprenticeship course that starts in the spring of 2025, our Roots and Spheres course that combines astrology and herbalism that starts in January, and then announcing for the first time my Year 2 Herbal Apprenticeship course launching in the fall of 2025, where we'll go into even deeper study of plant-based medicines, looking at emotional and mood and how they relate to herbs. I'll also teach with you or share with you some of my favorite diagnostic skills, including tongue and facial assessment. And we will look at custom formulation, how you can learn to make very effective herbal tea and tincture blends. So if you're interested in any of those, please hop over to our Kickstarter. A link is in the description below. You can also find it on my website, skyhouseherbs.com. Thank you for your contribution, for your continued support of my work and my husband's work at Nightlight Astrology. And now let's move into today's content. Hey everyone, welcome in. This week we are going to be looking at the lungs and lung health. I want to talk a little bit about the lungs and grief, and also just share a little bit with you about my own healing journey through pneumonia. So whether you're dealing with lung issues yourself, dealing with grief issues yourself, or just interested in learning more about specific herbs, in today's episode, I'm going to be bringing a bunch of herbs in. I'm going to show you them so you can see what they look like, talk about their uses, and then I'm going to have, we're going to build a tea together, a tea formula, and I'll include all of those notes in the description. Before we dive into today's content, if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, it's just a click away, and your subscription is so important to me. It lets me know that people out there are listening to my content. It helps other people to find my work, and it really helps the information of plant medicine spread wider and further. So thank you for subscribing, liking this video, and sharing if you think it would be helpful. All right. So let's talk first about the lungs and their symbolic meaning, what the lungs have to teach us. I want to hear your thoughts about the lungs too. What are your experiences with your lungs and how they process? Because I think this is a collective conversation. I mean, we are all collectively breathing on this planet together. And, I've been thinking a lot about the lungs and, our relationship with the lungs to the pneuma, or like the spirit of life. And if you've ever had difficulty breathing, it's like you can feel the spirit force weakening in your body. And I have been very weak these last few weeks, these last weeks, because my pneuma, my spirit, pneuma comes from the Latin or Greek word for the spirit, this invisible force, the air that we breathe, the sort of the spirit fluid, you could call it. And so when we are deprived of this air, of this pneuma, of this spirit, it's like the colors, the light, the zest, the zeal for life gets diminished. And I think, when we're processing grief, which is connected to the lungs according to traditional Chinese medicine, It's hard to find joy or to find the lightheartedness that you once did before the grief hit you. And often the grief hits the chest like an elephant sitting on the chest, or like a ton of bricks hitting your chest. I've heard people say, and in my own experiences of grief, it's like a weight that sits on your heart. And so I think right now, I've been thinking so much about the plants, because the plants are the lungs of the earth. And Susan Weed had this beautiful quote that I think I've been thinking of a lot, where she says, "The breath is the giveaway dance between us and the plants." And it is, that it's the unspoken language, this breathing reciprocity between us and all of the green breathing creatures on this planet. Our exhale feeds their inhale, their exhale feeds our inhale, and the dance goes on and on. And I've been leaning heavily on the plants these last few weeks for support emotionally, and then physically, to help me with the physical act of breathing, to physically soothe my nervous system, and to emotionally support just so many big feelings that have come up. And I'm sure I'm not alone. So I often think, and I hope that sharing my personal experience is a way for you to not feel alone, for us to feel connected, and maybe if it's at all helpful in your own processing of what's going on for you, just having someone else speak it how it is. So that's what I'm going to do. So I guess one thing I want to say that I think is really important is that as an herbalist, I've been seeing clients and working with herbs for over 15 years. I've been into natural health for over 20 years. And I needed antibiotics, and I needed prednisone, and I needed a nebulizer. And I just, I think even myself, I run into this within myself, where I'm an herbalist. I should be able to cure this, to kick this, to get over this with just herbs. And the good news is that there's been a lot of things I've been able to heal with just herbs. And the reality is that thank the goddess for Western pharmaceuticals and these drugs that save lives, and likely saved mine. Because I was a child, I had very terrible asthma, and my lungs are kind of my weak area. So whenever I get sick, if it gets to my lungs, it takes a long time for them to heal. And that's just, it's just the way some of us are built. We all have our Achilles heel, our area of weakness. So so I took all of the pharmaceuticals because I needed them, and I knew it. And I just want to say that for any of you out there who are, you're herbalists, you're homesteaders, you want to live naturally. I have no judgment. If you can do it without antibiotics, great. And I actually, I postponed, I went to the doctor, I got the diagnosis. I said, let me, can I have give me like a week. Let me just see if I can clear this without antibiotics. Cause I know how much they disrupt the gut microbiome. They're hard on the system. So I tried, I used my propolis, I used my andrographis, I was using my mullein, I had my garlic, I was taking fire cider. I did everything that in my own power to use antibacterial, antibiotic herbs to see if I could not use antibiotic pharmaceuticals. And you know what? After a week, it would have been worse without the herbs. I know that, but it still wasn't good enough with them. So I needed more help. And so I went back to the doctor and I said, you know what? Can you have a listen? The doctor said, girl, you've got double pneumonia now. You need to go on antibiotics, and we need to do another round of prednisone. So I did. I did it. And I hate prednisone. It makes me feel kind of like crazy in my body. But you know what? I could breathe, and I could heal. And I needed those strong anti-inflammatory steroids in that moment. So, I hope you don't judge me, just like I would never judge any of you for doing what's necessary for your own body and health. But I just want to be transparent that as an herbalist, sometimes we do, and I do reach out and I combine. I take the best of all the worlds. And as I have been on my antibiotics, I've continued to take my herbs. I've continued to do my essential oils, to do my steams. I've continued, I've started taking probiotics, intermittently. I'm taking tons of probiotics now and fermented foods to build back my gut. Um, and it's okay. It's okay. And I'm trying to, again, use all the resources that I have available to me. And at the same time, learn from this experience of like, how did I get here? What might I have done differently? And, what are the gods, including the plant gods, teaching me in this experience? So I want to share a little bit of those learnings with you now and talk about the herbs, the ones that really helped, where I think things didn't really help, and what I did wrong, which is important. So let's turn our attention to the plants. So I think one of the things that, in retrospect, looking back, is I feel like I should have been taking stronger tinctures sooner. And I really leaned on my teas, which I think is great. And I would do my teas plus some stronger tinctures earlier once I felt that tightening. So what I would have done in hindsight was I would have taken my bee balm, Monarda fistulosa tincture a lot sooner, and I would have probably dosed myself about a teaspoon, maybe 4 times a day, along with maybe my andrographis and propolis and other strong antibacterials, to have kept it from sitting in my lungs. Then, one of the things I did when it was very kind of mild was I used mullein leaves. And mullein is a wonderful, gentle tonic. But when you're getting into bacterial infections, mullein's not going to touch it. Mullein is like, it's going to heal the tissue once it's been inflamed or once it's been damaged. But if you're on the road to bronchitis pneumonia, mullein's not going to stop that train. It's just not. So I'm convalescing, which is the healing after the illness. And I don't know. I think most of the bacteria, like I feel like it's mostly gone, but I'm not back to health. And so I just harvested these mullein leaves yesterday because I ran out of them. So these are sort of freshly picked yesterday. They're still, fresh. They're going to take a few days to dry, but I'm going to use them fresh, and I'll show you in a little bit how to do this. So, I just want to make that distinction of what mullein can and cannot do for us. Another herb that I learned a lot about is lungwort, and this is the lungwort from my garden. And it's interesting because I've grown it before and the deer have never eaten it, but this year the deer ate it down to the base. And I thought that was kind of interesting. I was like, what is it about this year? Because I've heard tons of people talk about cases of pneumonia. Even my doctor said, I have never seen this many cases of pneumonia this early in the season. She's like, there's definitely something going on. And then I had friends in Canada, some of my students that are in my herbal apprenticeship were telling me, oh my gosh, there's tons of pneumonia in my schools too. So I don't know. Maybe the deer kind of anticipated something happening collectively, and they ate most of it. But I got these lungwort leaves before they were eaten down. I just want to show you what they look like. So this is Pulmonaria officinalis, and these leaves are a lot like mullein, but there's something really different about them. And this is what I've learned through this sickness about the difference. So mullein is like very fuzzy and soft, and you can kind of see it's like it's fuzz. You can see the little hairs. Whereas lungwort, just listen. Oh, you hear that? It's like scratchy, like a Brillo pad. And when I was, after I dried these leaves and I was crushing them up to put them in the jar, they were like poking my fingers, like prickling, almost like nettles. Like I was getting stung by them. And I was like, what is that? So I started doing some research on lungwort. And yeah, lungwort has a long history of use for things specific to like lung inflammation, like bronchitis and It's a much stronger lung herb. And just in the way they look and in the way they feel, like, listen, that's mullein and that's lungwort. Do you hear the difference? So in terms of remedies, which one would you think is a stronger remedy? Well, probably this one and not that one, right? Okay. So, and in my experience, when I put the lungwort into my tea blends, it's almost like those little prickles, like, you know how in when we use nettles, the sting of the nettles brings, it's like it increases inflammation in that area, so it brings blood flow to those tissues. I could really feel with the lungwort that it brings blood flow. It's like, not, I don't want to say irritating, well, maybe a little irritating to the lungs, but like to the, like, it's just I felt like there was a stronger, more pronounced effect in its ability to hit my lungs. If yeah, I'm hoping that makes sense to you. But that was my experience. So I was also looking at, there's tons of really interesting compounds in lungwort, including rosmarinic acid, which is also found in rosemary, which I can't taste, but it's in there. And then there's very specific compounds that are very strongly anti-inflammatory and anti-spasmodic. So that's pretty amazing. And it has that signature of looking, these spots look like a cancerous or a diseased lung. And they have these, like, the leaves are kind of big and long, kind of maybe more like that. So I would definitely recommend using lungwort for more acute, severe lung infections and lung diseases. So like emphysema, I mean, really, like, this is going to get in there. So I wanted to share that with you. The other herbs that I've been leaning heavily on have been, I mentioned bee balm. So I've been adding a lot of bee balm. This is Monarda didyma, which is the red bee balm. There's also Monarda fistulosa, which is that light purple bee balm. Both of them are really good and very strong, but I almost feel like the didyma is a little bit more heating and dispersing for the tension in my chest. So in playing with those two, I definitely decided I just was more leaning on these ones a little bit more, the red one. Other herbs that are really helpful for the lungs that I've been using is yarrow. And these are yarrow from the garden. Look at how beautiful they are. They almost look like, little lungs, like, a little upside down, like little like lung tissue. And Matthew Wood, one of my teachers, talks a lot about how it's a blood aerator. So it aerates the lungs. And when you have pneumonia, it's like, you can probably hear me even now, like my lung capacity is very low, like and shallow. So I have to talk slower, take more breaths, and I can feel my blood oxygen is not, it's not at its optimal place. So yarrow is an herb that can help with oxygenation of the blood. It helps with the lungs and just moving blood and moving oxygen through the tissues. So I've been adding yarrow to my teas. Another herb that I really am so grateful for is licorice root. This is from Mountain Rose Herbs. And licorice root is a really strong anti-inflammatory. And it's almost like, I think about it almost like a steroid. It has like steroidal saponins and compounds in it that act kind of like strong anti-inflammatory steroids. So I've been using a lot of licorice in my herbal teas to continue to help take down inflammation. Also, it is an immune modulator, so it's helpful for keeping a healthy immune response, which is something I want to support my body in doing as it's healing from this. So let me now, I'm going to just pan my camera down and we're going to make a little tea blend together. And I'm just going to show you an example of, if you are, coming out of any sort of sickness, maybe you still have a residual cough, maybe you still have some tightness in your lungs. If it's grief and you're kind of just feeling like you're processing grief, another thing I should have mentioned at the beginning is wildfire smoke inhalation. I know there's This is sadly something that's happening more and more across the world, are droughts and wildfires. So if you've been exposed to smoke, this blend is also, and these herbs are also going to be really helpful for cleansing and repairing the damaged lung tissue from smoke. So all of these are reasons why you can use these herbs, and good examples of how to use them. Okay, so I'm going to just move my camera down. Doop, and get it set up, hopefully. Ooh, you're going on a little bit of a wild ride with me here. Okay, let's see if I can do this. All right, now, so I've got this little teapot. And again, I know you've seen this in just about every video because I use it all the time. And this is called the For Life. It's a 2-cup teapot. It's wonderful because it's got this really big strainer in it. And so I've been using this like several times a day to make my herbal teas. So this is what I'm going to use to make this tea blend. Now, what I like to do is I like to put some of my lighter herbs in the bottom and then my heavier herbs on top. That way the heavier herbs keep the lighter herbs moving down. So some of my lighter herbs, for example, are going to be yarrow. So I'll just take, oh, and if you are wondering why I have paper towels and over some of the lids here, this is something I learned from herbalist Misty Cook. I took an herb walk with her at the Midwest Women's Herbal Conference this spring. And her grandmother, and I want to say, I think she's Lakota, her grandmother said that the herbs need to breathe. So she puts a cloth, and I don't have enough cloth. I haven't gotten around to cutting squares of cloth, so I'm just using paper towels. But she said that it's a much better way. It actually keeps the herbs more fresh. I thought that was interesting. So I'm trying it out this year. And so far, I really, really like it. So that's why I don't have lids. Some of them I just haven't done yet, but others, a lot of the herbs I recently harvested, I have paper towel lids on. So what I'm going to do, let's start with yarrow. So I'm just going to take it and I'm going to crush it up. And I'm probably doing maybe about, I'm going to say maybe like a tablespoon. Now, yarrow is a very bitter herb. It's not my favorite taste. I like that it's really warming, but I don't like that it's very bitter. So I'm going to counteract the bitter flavor with some salty and sweet tastes. So I'll show you those in a minute. So there is yarrow. Another lighter herb that I have in my blend is my bee balm. So I'm going to take maybe about, I don't know, a pretty large pinch, maybe even a little bit more. I would call that maybe about 3 tablespoons of my bee balm. Here I have some oregano. So oregano and bee balm are very similar. So if you don't have bee balm, you can use just, oregano. But I'm going to just use both because they're both very antibacterial, antiviral. They're very good expectorants. They thin the mucus in the lungs. They're very warming and heating. And I really like that. So I put that in. Next, I'm going to put in my mullein leaf. So because I'm still healing and convalescing, and this is the fresh leaf. So I'm still using it, even though I just harvested it yesterday. You can use these fresh, and I'm just ripping it up like this. And that's nice and fluffy. I'm going to push that down. Definitely want my lungwort. This has been like, I'm just so grateful for these plants. They're just wonderful. Youch! This hurts. This is poking my fingers. I mean, I wish I could, I don't know if you can see. These are like, they're spiky. They're really hard. And yeah, when I pinch them and rip them, it actually pokes my skin. So, but I know that that's like I know that it's really doing something for my lungs. So my fingers will take the burn. All right, the next herb I'm going to put in is a little bit of peppermint. And really you can use any mints, and I've already used bee balm and oregano, but I just like the taste of peppermint. So I'm going to put in about a tablespoon of dried peppermint leaves. Because I'm also, there's a dryness in my lungs, even though I have a little bit that I'm still coughing up, I'm going to use some marshmallow root because it's really soothing and demulcent. It's also a little salty and sweet. So it's going to help balance the bitter flavor of some of these herbs like yarrow, and the oregano is a little tiny bit bitter. So I've got maybe about a tablespoon of marshmallow root. Another herb I've been using a ton is these are cinnamon chips. And I have, this is Cassia verum, which is the variety I really like. It's the more traditionally medicinal one. And I'm going to do a lot. I'm going to do probably about a full tablespoon. I love cinnamon. It's sweet. It's an interesting thing about cinnamon is it's both moistening and drying. So it's got tannins, which help dry things up. And it has polysaccharides, which are sweet and moisten. So it's really harmonizing in that way. And it's very aromatic. It's very clearing for the lungs. I feel like it's such a good sweet medicine. It's also a protective plant. And so I like having that in for taste and for its medicinal values. And then lastly is licorice root. You really don't need a lot because it's very strong. So I'm probably going to do for myself, this is probably about a teaspoon. And I'm going to put that on top, push those down. And that feels like a pretty good blend. Next, I have my hot water kettle, and I'm just going to pour in my water over the top. Just go in circles to try to get all of the herbs wet. I'm going to fill it all the way up until the herbs start to float. And I know I've gotten it to the top, right, like that. I love that this has a lid so that I don't lose the volatile oils as they come up. And then I'm just going to let this steep for about 10 minutes. And then I will drink it. So that is one example of an herbal tea blend that you could make. And, I'm sure there's a lot of other herbs you could add in if you wanted to, but this is kind of basically what I've been drinking the last few weeks. I've also been taking a blend with mullein, angelica, and lobelia for my lungs. These are all really great bronchodilators and lung healing herbs. And then I mentioned before that I was taking a lot of the strong antibacterials, but you know what? I needed something more. And I think part of what there's been, I think, kind of like three main things that, well, let me step back because I want to just say something about this idea of convalescence. So in ancient Greek medicine, they had three states of being in health, in their health, the way they viewed health. There was a healthful state, there was a neutral state, and there was a sick state. And, obviously the healthy state is when the vitality is strong, color is good, energy is good, mental, emotional faculties are at their peak. We know sickness, which is when there is, clear disease, discomfort, right? All of those things. But what the Greeks also understood is that there was a neutral space where the body was neither well nor sick. And they took this space very seriously, and they built over 300 Asclepian temples for healing, specifically for people who were coming out of illness, that were in this neutral state that really needed to be revitalized and restored. So they were basically like spas. Most of them were built on the water. They had access to big bathhouses where they had heated water, sometimes hot springs, sometimes cold baths. And they went through this very intricate process of revitalizing and restoring health. And this is where we get this word convalescence from. So convalescence, often when we think about that now, we think about these Victorian homes and the, French countrysides and rich people like, sitting in lawn chairs, sipping tea. But this is a very old way of thinking about restoring health. And so the ancient Greeks, here's what they did. Let me just tell you exactly what they did, because I've been researching this for the herbal apprenticeship course I teach. And they had two phases of convalescence, of helping people get from neutral back to vital. The first one was the practice of catharsis. And catharsis is basically cleansing or purging. So this part involves bathing, so doing lots of hot baths and steams and mineral baths and mud masks, and basically just helping the body purify through water. The second one, the second part of catharsis was a very bland diet. So eating foods that were very clean and very easy to digest that helped the whole body detoxify and clear. And this included herbs. They would do herbal teas to help the body and the humors clear. So they would, assess the person and give them individualized food and herbs to help them restore, to help purge and cleanse the body and cleanse the humors. Another thing that was part of the catharsis was art. How about that? Isn't that revolutionary? So what they would do is they would have the patient do art to purge the emotional effects of their illness, because they believe that a person couldn't move back to vital health without processing the emotions of sickness, which are part of the healing process. So through art, painting, drawing, singing, whatever, many different forms of art to specifically process their emotions so they could purge those emotions and get back to health. So that's something that I've been doing as part of my own recovery journey, is like, making these beautiful little labels, and I've been drawing and reading and doing little creative projects. So that's part one. Part two is the incubus or incubato process of convalescence, and that's the resting part. So in this part, the person would experience quiet rooms. So at these Asclepian temples, they would have rooms that were just for quiet. And so you could go in and you could be with other people or be alone, and it was quiet. Quiet was said to be an important part of healing. The other part of this resting phase was deep sleep. So they would have blackout rooms where people could sleep for long periods of time. And they understood the importance of restorative sleep, but not just that, but part of the idea of sleeping would be to connect with the god Asclepius, the god of medicine and healing, to receive instruction. So they would go into the sleep asking for help, asking for advice. And often they would be either visited by one of the gods or one of the sons or, followers of the gods in their tradition. They would be visited by the plants, or they'd be visited by animals, or they'd be visited by people who would tell them important information to help them heal. And then the priests would come in and help the people interpret their dreams and help them with protocols. So that was part of the healing process in ancient Greece. And I just was thinking about, in the West, how sorely these healing spaces are needed. After any sort of trauma, grief, illness, sickness, wouldn't it be nice to have spaces where people could go and receive some retreat, quiet, this deeper level of healing for like a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month, to get their vital force back? Because I feel like what happens more often than not is we're sick and then we stay in that neutral state for like months until slowly we get back to healthy state. And some of us teeter between health and neutral. And maybe never even experience full vital health because we haven't taken the time to really repair and restore. And I know, like, I'm not trying to guilt anyone because I'm a busy mom. I have a household, like, I get it. You can't take weeks and weeks off and disappear into like, an expensive resort and get spa treatments. However, I would encourage you, and this is something that I've done, so it's possible, is just clear your schedule. if you're getting better, take things off the books that are not absolutely necessary. Conserve your energy. Take hot baths. Like, here are the things that you can do to convalesce. Take hot baths, put your own mineral salts in, do your own herbal oil massages on your own body. You can do that. Drink your own herbal teas, right? Make your own herbal soups and nutritious healing soups that are going to be nourishing for you. And just, yeah, cut down on extraneous noise and activity and isolate yourself for your own mental well-being. Do some art. You can guide yourself through art. And then pay attention to your dreams. Journal your own dreams. Pay attention to the symbols, any plants that show up. When you're walking, notice what plants hop out at you, right? Like, you can do this for yourself. I wish we had more community centers that provided this space, but until we do, I think this is the best next thing. And that way, when we do this, we can model it for our children. We can model it for others in our community of, this is how we restore. This is how we take good care of ourselves, because we're not machines. We're very complex, living, spiritual um, bodies and souls that need way more time to process than I think we give ourselves. So I hope this was maybe helpful in a way, just reminding you. I mean, there's nothing I've said that you don't probably already know about the convalescent process, but maybe just giving you some inspiration and insights for additional ways of caring for yourself after being sick. And then all of these herbs, just knowing that they're around, they're available. I'll include some links for suppliers of these herbs if you want to buy them yourselves. And if you are planning your spring garden, your 2025 garden, maybe you add some of these to your list of herbs to grow, specifically yarrow, lungwort, bee balm, and peppermint. Just add those to your list of herbs you're going to grow, because you will use those. You will use those a lot. All right, I'm going to take my sweet healing lungs over to the couch. I'm going to lie down. I'm going to drink my tea. I'm going to read a little bit and draw a little bit. And I will see you all in the next episode. Bye.